Hey, what's up nerds? It's time for another build guide for how to play something. And what better frame to start with than Mag? As a starter frame, Warframe offers you one of the weakest early game frames, yet also one of the strongest and most well-designed endgame frames at the same time. So in this video, we're diving deeper into how to actually play Mag, her abilities, and some builds, both for newer players and for those who wish to one-shot level cap. First off, I just want to repeat what I said in the last video. We are insanely close to 1000 subscribers, and once we hit that, I'm doing a small giveaway of 500 platinum. So, like this video and subscribe if you want to join us. Right, let's start this off with Mag's abilities. This will be quite a long section, since Mag's synergies are vast, so if you're just interested in the builds, you can use the timestamps in the description below. Let's start off with Mag's passive. Mag's passive pulls loot towards her when she bullet jumps. It's quite similar to the vacuum mod, just with a very small radius, and it's only activated while bullet jumping. Ability number 1, Pull. Pull is a very useful minor crowd controlling ability. Mag pulls enemies towards her, stunning them with her magnetic force. Slapping the augment greedy pull on it allows you to also pull loot towards you. Pull can be used in quite a few ways. For example, pulling enemies into melee range, or quick CC while reviving allies, or to just straight up yeet enemies off the map and open tile sets. Ability number 2, Magnetize. The Bubble of Doom can be summoned on enemies, ensnaring them and gobbling up all bullets, projectiles, etc. like a hungry Grendel. After the bubble's duration has depleted and the enemy you cast it on has died, it will shrink while compressing the damage it has been fed and explode in a radius that is affected by ability range. In addition to that, any incoming damage will be dealt, and 25% of that damage will be dealt as damage over time in tick intervals of half a second. Usability wise, you can tap this ability to create said bubble, or hold it to create a smaller version of it on yourself, absorbing ranged attacks. Releasing it will throw the damage back in a cone. Now this is probably Mag's strongest ability, as it not only allows you to group a bunch of goons and make them take surrounding damage, but it also protects your team from incoming damage and deals a literal fuckton of damage on explosion. The radius of the bubble is affected by range mods, the duration by duration mods, and the amount of damage and some of its multipliers by damage mods. There are a few ways to effectively deal damage while using this ability. Firstly, using weapons, Warframe abilities, with a lot or infinite punch through. Think of the Lanka, Miter, and or the Penta, Secura Penta. Projectiles shot will traverse through the bubble and deal a crap ton of damage to enemies as long as the bubble lasts. Good weapons are, as I said, the Lanka, Secura Penta, the Miter, Daikyu, and in some cases the Dread. Not even forgetting my favorite, the Cyanex. Warframe abilities like Excalibur's Exalted Blade are also extremely powerful in Magnetize, as this ability specifically has infinite punch through and will warp across the bubble. Secondly, using beam weapons like the Kuva Nukor, Ignis Wraith, etc. will pump up the damage over time and make sure that every enemy walking through it or getting pulled in dies. This is of course insanely useful when you're creating choke points on, for example, Kuva farming missions. Just throw your bubble, blast your Kuva Nukor into it, and just watch your enemies wither. And lastly, enemies might be immobilized, but they are still able to attack, meaning they will quite literally commit Sudoku while you're chilling in a corner. I'd say there's more to the bubble, and we could dig around with math PhDs all day, but the gist of it is, projectiles are better than hitscan weapons, and beam weapons fuck over even the strongest of enemies. The augment of this ability is called Magnetized Discharge, and it enables you to detonate your bubble on will. Enemies hit by the detonation have a 50% chance to be disarmed, and it adds 45% range passively. Sadly, there's still an issue with Magnetize causing enemies to lift up over the initial target, making projectiles etc. harder to hit. Please fix DE. Next ability, Polarize. Mag casts a pulse of magnetic energy that depletes enemy shields or armor, depending on the faction you are playing against. You can rip the shields off of those Corpus Plaps and deal some nasty damage to them. Or you can strip the armor off of some Grineer goons and additionally deal true damage, which negates all armor etc. Enemies also overcharge. Dying will make them explode and deal magnetic damage in a small radius, particularly effective when used with Magnetize. The damage dealt is affected by damage mods, the initial radius is affected by range mods, and how far the pulse goes is affected by duration mods. Enemies hit by Polarize will also drop shards, which act like projectiles in Magnetize, and will add to the damage over time. It's not a lot, but it sure makes a difference. Lastly, walking through the pools of Polarize restores your and your allies' shields instantly. Augment-wise, we got Counter Pulse, which jams enemy weapons and robotics and disables them for 4 seconds when hit by Polarize. Obviously, this is a much beloved mod, especially in the later stages due to Mac's area of effect abilities. I think that covers Polarize pretty well. Needless to say, the Vigilante mods greatly increase the shields gained and allow you to go into overshield mode as well, so I'd say abuse that. The last ability is called Crush.
Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of their women.
Mac magnetizes the bones of all enemies in a radius, raising them in the air, forming them into a pretzel, and then smacking them on the ground like the pathetic worms they are. This ability is super useful for crowd controlling, killing a large amount of low-level enemies, and dealing magnetic damage. The damage is dealt in 3 stages, with each tick dealing 1/3 of the total damage. Enemies who walk into the field after the ability has been cast will also be crushed. The ability also creates and increases overshields. A neat side effect of this ability is that the more enemies caught in it, the more overshield you and your allies get. The only downside is that you are immobilized yourself while casting, so taking a mod like Natural Talent is an absolute must. The augment Fracturing Crush affects any enemy who survived Crush and reduces their armor by 50% while also becoming unable to move for 7 seconds. So that's the ability side of things. But how do we actually play Mac? And what are some builds that can be used by beginners and more advanced players? Playstyle. I'd say there are around 2 to maybe 3 different playstyles. Playstyle number 1, the Bubble Caster. This Mac player casts bubbles like he's fondling with his own balls. Making them as big as possible while having medium duration makes sure that larger groups of enemies are affected by both the bubble and the explosion. This Mac player can often be found cowering in a corner, making sure the team doesn't die straight up AFK for the next 20 seconds in some desolate room. Playstyle number 2, the Short Bubble of Doom. This Mac player loves to tease you with security, while all along he just wants to see shit explode. With a medium-sized bubble and short duration with high strength, this player might be your best friends in longer run. Playstyle number 3, the Hybrid Mac. This Mac player is your best friend, making sure your shields are always topped up and crowd controlling the enemies. Making sure you're alive and well while doing 99% of the damage, this Mac player is the real MVP in your team setup. Alright, jokes aside, here are 3 builds. Build 1 is for beginners. I've tried to make sure that only mods I used are commonly found ones and that they actually benefit your gameplay. Most of these mods are fairly easy to find. The Augur set can be farmed from the Plains of Eidolon, which you will have to do either way later on, so might as well do it straight away. Build number 2 is a mid-range and mid-duration build with lots of strength, making sure that your bubble deals a lot of damage and concentrating on that single aspect while also providing lots of shields. The last build is my personal endurance build and should somewhat emulate the best that Mac has to offer in my opinion. Not a whole lot changed, but I do give up some strength for Natural Talent and change the aura from Steel Charge to Speed Holster. This is a more personal choice. Others will probably use Brief Respite to abuse shield gating. However, I find being able to switch between secondary and primary more enjoyable, and we can always enter Operator or simply cast our 3 to survive or instantly regain shields. Alright, that's my input on Mac. Hopefully you were able to learn something. No matter the skill level you possess in game, I find it important to learn about different frames to either explore if they're fun to play, or to make sure we synergize optimally when playing together for a longer run. With that said, make sure to like the video and subscribe if you did like the video, and tell me what your favorite build is in the comment section below. Stay healthy, stay awesome. Later.